I want to thank my first guest, Sonu Shivdasani, for being on my podcast today, who I'm sure is going to set a high benchmark for all my following guests to come. Sonu is the visionary behind the forward-thinking brand Soneva, which I'm proud to say I'm an ambassador of. Soneva have 3 unique properties, 2 being in the Maldives and 1 in Thailand. They cater for the luxury traveller who has a passion for intelligent luxury with a particular focus on sustainability. Now, my first question has to start with the current environment, which we are all experiencing right now. So what impact has COVID-19 had on Soneva?
Well, firstly, Dani, it's great to have you as an ambassador. We really appreciate your representing Soneva and being such a big enthusiast for what we do. COVID-19, of course, has had a big impact globally. We're quite fortunate in that we operate in relatively COVID-19 free destinations. So the island of Trat, where Soneva Curie is, the state of Trat, the province of Trat, Touchwood has no COVID-19 cases. That's in Thailand. And then in Maldives, we've also had very few cases. So there have been a total of about 50 cases in all. Most were a couple of weeks ago with very little spread from one to the other. There has now been a little outbreak in Mali over the last 4 or 5 days, but that's very much contained to Mali. So the advantage of the Maldives is that we're 1,150 islands. So there's a natural isolation between one island and the other.
And you're currently on the island at Soneva Fushi in the Maldives, right?
We're at Soneva Fushi, that's right. So we're on one of our 2 resorts here in the Maldives. So at Soneva Fushi, we have about 80 other guests at the moment. So quite a lot of them are staying here. They'd arrived in March. Other resorts in the Maldives closed 1st of April.
And your guests have decided to stay on the island?
They've decided to stay. They deliberately decided to stay. So there have been flights going back home, but they felt that they'd rather just out here in the Maldives where it's COVID-19 free. They'd already been in the Maldives for 2 weeks, so they were pretty safe of any symptoms. You know, they displayed no symptoms, so they were clear of it. So quite a few families are just staying out here at Soneva Fushi, waiting until things improve, because at least here they can meet with other guests, interact normally. What, we seem to have lost everywhere else in the world. They can go out for lunch and dinner with family and friends, carry out water sports activities, walk around. They're not in lockdown because we're COVID-free here.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. Where are most of your guests actually from?
They're from all over the world. They live in countries that are currently locked down. We're having a great time because we're all here for a long period of time. So normally when you have guests on the island, they're normally here for a week or 2. So you might get to meet them once or twice, and that's it. Whereas here, most of our guests have been here already for 3 or 4, for 4 or 4 weeks already. And some are going to be here for about 2 or 3 months by the time they finish. So we got to know them quite well. I went to Shivdasani the other day, and on the way there, we saw pods of dolphins. There were 2 pods of dolphins on the way. And then Saturday we had a paddleboard competition with our guests. We were going around the island, and then we stopped off at one of the bars. There's an overwater bar, so it's a nice environment at the moment.
Sounds beautiful. I also wanted to ask you if you've actually stress tested your business plan over the years. Basically, have you anticipated a crisis like this happening?
No, absolutely not. I think there must be very few people who would have anticipated the extent of what's happened. I've been through many crises in my career, so going through a crisis is not new. In fact, I like to paraphrase the 18th century French writer who described 18th and 19th century Europe, and he described la paix, c'est l'intervalle entre les 2 guerres. It's the gap in between 2 wars. And in a way, operating in travel and tourism over the last 20 years, it's been a bit like that as well. The good times are the gaps in between the crises. We've had 9/11 and SARS and, the global financial crisis and lots of other ones. But I've never seen anything quite as bad as this. The destruction to the GDP in America, I think, is even worse than during 1929. Stock prices have also dropped more than they ever dropped in the Great Wall Street crash, during the depressions.
As an expert in the travel and hospitality industry, do you see this crisis as a game changer? And if so, please explain a little more.
Well, I hope it does change us in our ways, in a way, because what this crisis has done, it's given us more than 21 days creating a new routine. One of the challenges we have with change is it's very difficult. We get used to habits. We're creatures of habits. So if you learn something, so you go to a class, you won't really learn it until you do it 21 days in a row. So, for example, I do yoga every other day and I meditate every morning. It took me time to get into that routine. I had to try and again. And then once I'd done it for about 3 weeks, then it became natural. And so now it's like a drug. It's part of my ritual. And this crisis, as severe as it is, will, like other crises, it will definitely end. Whereas we have a crisis that's coming up and looming in the horizon is global warming. That's going to be a crisis that, unlike this one, will not end. It'll just get worse and worse and worse. And I think we've seen it already. I mean, you live in Dubai. We're recording hotter and hotter summers. I suspect that now in Dubai it must be very, very warm, and that next month it's going to be toasting and warmer than ever. So if we don't do something about global warming, by 2050, Dubai will be uninhabitable, according to some scientists, by, I think it's either 2050 or 2100. So, not that far in the distant future, the temperature during the coldest time of the year, so the temperature during December, will be warmer than it is now during the hottest period. So by 2100, in December, it'll be hotter than it normally is in Dubai in June, July, which means that human beings will not be able to exist there outside artificial environments. It'll become inhabitable for the average human being. So that's the world that we're in, and that's the crisis we're going towards. So I do hope that by experiencing a crisis and experiencing how deep it could be, by being in lockdown and having to change one's ways, I do believe and I do hope that it will cause society to rethink their ways, their behaviors, and hopefully it will result in more sensitive people that are more sensitive to animals and nature, and of course, people that react and respond to this big looming crisis, which if we think this is bad, global warming is going to be super bad.
Yes, Soneva's ethos is all about sustainability, and that's very evident from the minute you step onto the island. When I was with you at Soneva Kiri in November, you spoke in detail about the forward-thinking practices which you were putting in place. Can you explain more to our listeners?
Yes, so our core purpose at Soneva is slow life. It's an acronym because when we ran Six Senses as well, we had about 5 to 10,000 people with 50 different nationalities. So we needed a clear mission, a clear core purpose that was easy for everyone to understand. And so in short, it stands for Sustainable Local Organic Wellness, Learning, Inspiring, Fun Experiences. So that's what slow life, all of those letters stand for. But in summary, what we're trying to do is offer our guests luxuries whilst minimizing our impact on the planet and enhancing that health. And we do that by questioning and challenging what really is a luxury. Because today, in the 21st century, luxury is a word that's been overused. The context of the rich have changed. So people would sometimes refer to big, thick blue carpets and gold taps and marble as luxury. But luxury is not about objects. It's essentially about that which is rare. And the rich today are no longer rural. They're not living in the countryside, having inherited their wealth with a lot of fresh air, space, and privacy. Today, the rich are urban, living in small boxes, having made their money. And so for them, some of the elements that the rich took for granted in the past are now very rare. Fresh air is almost impossible in the urban environment. Fresh food is, again, a challenging. Space and privacy at big premiums. So with that in mind, we offer our guests experiences that are rare to them and unique to them, but at the same time, minimize our impact on the planet. And sustainability is very important. So we, for example, we do things that don't really affect our guests. So, for example, we measure all 3 scopes of carbon CO2, and we then offset that, including the externality, guests flying in. We've banned branded water, so just water bottled on site. So no Evian or no Vitel. So we just bottle the water on site, taking a linear process and making it circular. We recycle 90% of our waste. When we're building, we're very conscious about the environments we build in. We try and bring out the most beautiful aspect of nature. So you're at Soneva Kiri, for example, there's that lovely tripod dining. So rather than an air-conditioned restaurant made by a famous designer with a branded chef opening his 50th outlet, which you get in Dubai or London or Paris, why not the restaurant bring the tree pod, where you go up into the trees, you press a button, then this pod goes up into the trees, and then the waiter zip lines up and down with food. You have Kun Ben's, where we went to. Very, very simple restaurant, a simple hut. We leave the resort, we come to the mouth of the river, we go through the river, up the river with mangroves on either side, and you come to this simple hut, and there's Kun Ben's, and she cooks whatever she's found fresh from the market that morning, or fresh from our gardens, using ingredients that have been handed down from generation to generation. There are many Thai restaurants in Dubai. There are many branded restaurants in Dubai with branded designers. But do you have Kun Ben's, who that simple Thai food? You can get hotel Thai food anywhere.
Yes, it was a lovely experience at Ben's restaurant, sitting on the water, eating such fresh food.
No, thank you. Yeah. And it's the simplicity and that freshness and the local spices. And she's just using recipes that have been handed down from generation to generation. So it's not like it's adulterated Thai food. In fact, the actress Gwyneth Paltrow is an enthusiast, and she was interviewed for the New York Times back in 2016, March 2016, and they asked her what her most memorable experience had been in the last 18 months, and she described Kun Ben's. So, so those are examples of what we mean by intelligent luxury, creating these unique experiences that are really rare for our guests.
Where do you see the opportunities arising in the travel industry as a whole, and also for Soneva?
I think there are certainly opportunities for us to communicate more digitally. I mean, I think the world will become more digital. I think there are various changes to how we operate, how we've been operating, that we will continue to. So I think corporate travel will go down substantially, because even in our own organization, which is a travel organization, we're going to be cutting business trips substantially and trying to do much more digitally and remotely. And then this has also just allowed us to rethink and reprioritize on our values and what makes life worthwhile.
Just going back to the point you made on our environment, recently in Dubai, we've seen manta rays that have been spotted in the marinas. And I've lived here 25 years and never seen or heard of anything like this before. Have you noticed a change in the marine life in the Maldives?
Not really, because the Maldives is quite a remote, pristine environment. But I've heard stories from people, just like you just mentioned now, that as a result of this economic slowdown, cities have become so much more habitable. One sees birds, one sees the sky, the blue sky. I remember coming to Dubai, as you mentioned, more than 20 years ago. I remember in roughly 1999, 2000, being in Dubai, and Jumeirah Beach was a nice, soft, sandy beach like you get in the Maldives, which moved. So the sand was light, white, and powdery. At night, you'd see the blue sky. I don't remember seeing the mantas, but it was quite beautiful. I suppose the skies are now bluer and clearer. You can actually see the stars now again.
As your resorts are still open, and I'm sure a few others are too, have you received any support from the Maldivian or the Thai government?
They're trying hard in the Maldives. So they are supporting our employees by giving them subsidies to utility bills and mortgages. But unfortunately, they don't have the financial depth of other nations. They also cannot print their currency and not expect inflation. So unlike the US, which has launched a 2.4 trillion stimulus package, which is 13% of GDP, the Maldives can't do that because they can't print dollars. So it hasn't been as supportive as, say, traditional OECD countries.
Well, at least they are supporting their citizens. And to be fair, the Dubai government are very supportive with expats. They're really helping with our rents and providing a stimulus package. This does go a long way for the residents.
Yes,
So which part of the world do you see bouncing back quickly once this travel ban is lifted? For UAE residents, I do believe the Maldives will be a popular destination, considering it is literally only 4 hours door to door.
And the Maldives is relatively COVID-19 free. So I can see a lot of demand bouncing back from the Middle East. Let's hope all is clear by Ramadan, after Ramadan. So we might have Eid celebrations from people in the Middle East here. I think Asia will generally bounce back quicker. We've seen China having gone through the bell curve and coming down at the other end. The number of new cases has flattened substantially. At one point, China had 15,000 new cases. And now, the number of new cases per day is about 30 or 40. So they made a remarkable improvement. South Korea as well. I think we'll see other Asian nations following. And so those will be the first, I think, to come back. And then the rest of the world will follow most probably 2 or 3 months after.
When we were together in November, we were talking about all the plans you had for Soneva Fushi's 25th birthday anniversary.
That's right.
And your team have put together such an amazing calendar of events. Will you move these celebrations to 2021?
So we actually opened on October in 1995. So actually 25 years is actually from October. So the idea is to start the plans in September, October.
Sonu, thank you so much for your time today. It's really greatly appreciated. And I hope the travel ban is lifted soon, because I know for one, me and my family are so excited to get back onto the island.
Yeah.
Thank you once again for your time, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Dani. It's been a pleasure.